Y'all, we live in difficult times. There's war, political unrest, the pandemic, poverty, families being torn, communities ripped by gun violence and people dying every day. Police, injustice, it's all bringing so much pain. But y'all, we can look inside our minds and we can understand who we are, become better, and do this thing like we've never done it before. But it all starts with our mental health, and I know we can do it. I believe in you because I believe in me, and I believe in us. Hello, this is Gerald McGee, your friendly neighborhood therapist, and today we're going to continue this discussion with talking about difficult emotions. I want to emphasize, there is no difficult emotion, a bad emotion, but it's what we experience. It's real. So we need to discuss it, understand it, and move forward. Now, as we started our discussion, we were talking about things we like to talk about, and we got into what it meant to be vulnerable. Now, I really want us to do a deeper dive into emotions. I want to emphasize, like I said earlier, that all emotions are normal to experience because they serve a purpose. Mm-hmm. All feelings are something that we're going to experience at some point in time. In fact, there's been a lot of studies that suggest there are over 300 different types of emotions. Mm. And sometimes in any situation, you might experience 3 emotions at one time, 2 or 3 emotions at one time. Mm-hmm. So I remember graduating from high school, because this is one of my best examples. And when I remember feeling excited when I was on the stage. I also remember feeling anxious and also feeling sad at the same time.
Right.
Why did I feel that way? Number one, I was excited because I was graduating. I finally finished this 13 years of education. Mm-hmm. I was anxious because I knew the future would be different. And, of course, I was sad because I understood that some of the people I had made connections with, some of my friends, at that time, we didn't have all this social media stuff. I realized that I would probably never see them again. Right. And I would lose some friends in that process. And so I felt happy, I felt sad, I felt anxious, all in one sitting. Yeah. I brought this up because oftentimes we're not able to identify different emotions. We just feel stuff. As I talked earlier about the alexithymia, we're not aware of emotions, so we can't describe them. We know we're feeling something. I know as a therapist, oftentimes I'm trying to help people identify different emotions and different feelings. So that sometimes takes some work to help people identify them. And I realized that for many men, they've never had to do that, because as we talked earlier, they was always told to don't talk about your feelings, be strong, don't show no weakness. So there's a whole number of emotions that we never really get in tune to. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you about some of these emotions and some of the things some of the ways you might have experienced some of these emotions. The first one I want to bring up is sadness. Can you remember a time that you've experienced sadness? And you can talk about it to whatever degree you want to talk about it, but can you remember a time you experienced it?
Yeah. So when my aunt Marion, when she passed, it was like compound sadness, bro. Like, so we had a relative who I didn't know passed out of town. So my grandmother and my aunt, they hop a Greyhound to go to the funeral. Some dude lose it on the bus, cut the bus driver's throat. Dude lose control, flips the bus. My grandmother got injured in the crash. My aunt died in the crash. So and they wouldn't give us any information initially. We just knew that there were some survivors, there were some people who didn't make it, and they hadn't given that out, and we just had nothing. We eventually found out my grandmother was in the hospital, but even after going through the entirety of the wreckage, they still hadn't located my aunt, which was crazy. And unfortunately, when the bus flipped, she was ejected out of and then end up under the bus.
Wow.
And so we like days into this situation and have no clue what's going on with her. And my little brother, he little, you know what I'm saying? So he like 9. He don't know no better. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, I'm sorry. He's like 6. So everybody in the house has found out while I'm at school. I get home and I'm walking up the driveway. He outside dribbling a basketball. And he like, hey, you know Auntie dead, right? Like, bro, when I tell you, folded me up right in the driveway, like, I could not tell you a time that I was more crushed. Like, it was so much. I didn't expect it. I didn't see it coming. I didn't expect it to get delivered like that. You know what I'm saying? And my baby brother don't, you know what I'm saying? He don't know. He a kid. So it's not registering for him because everybody's in the house trying to be strong in front of him and send him outside to go play. Like, go ahead, it's cool. And they all inside folded up. And now I'm walking up the driveway and then got folded up. And that particular incident resonates so much for me because after that happened, I went in the house and I went into a dark corner in my bedroom and I cried for hours, bro. And after that, where I was 13, 14 at the time, that was the last time I cried until I was 34.
Hold on, how old were you?
I was like 14 at the time.
And you went 20 years without crying, bro?
20 years.
Solid. Solid. Ask anybody. Everybody knows. Like my closest friend, my boys, like they call me a robot, all kind of like they call me all kind of names. And bro, you ain't got no, like, bro, no. Again, I have my emotions for sure. I just have outlets and I express them without physical outbursting. You know what I mean? So it was just, but I cried so hard. It was like at that, and I was so sad. I was so hurt about it. But after I cried for those hours, I got up and she was still gone. And it was in that moment that I felt like one relative passed who I didn't know. Another one had recently just passed who I did know. Another relative passed who I did know. And every time I just go and I sit in the corner and I'm crying. And it didn't change none of it. It didn't bring nobody back. It didn't make me feel better. It just made me feel like I just spent 3 hours crying. So it was like, what is this for? And that was when I started to look to other ways to express what I was feeling, to use what I was feeling versus wasting it. And that's what I felt like crying was. And once it became that to me, I just stopped doing it.
Okay.
But that is where sadness brought me to as a teenager, and that just stayed with me to today. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Sorry for your loss and the traumatic way it happened.
No, for sure. I appreciate you.
Sure.
Yeah, no, that was, bro. It was rough times. It's just like, what are the odds, bro? Losing a relative on the way to a funeral. It's crazy.
Steve.
It is.
Sorry about that. That really had to be difficult for you. And you know, I would say it was good that you cried, you know, because you was able to release some of the tension, some of the hurt, and some of the pain. You was able to let it go, but you were also able to find other ways to manage and cope with the experience, because you couldn't change the reality of the death.
Exactly.
I suggest that people don't try to rationalize or bring some type of spiritual or intellectual logic to death, because death is what it is.
Yeah.
And we'll never completely understand it, so we just have to accept it. But it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt, because even when we know death is happening, it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts, and it's a natural part of being human, because we attach and we connect to people. But go ahead. You.
Man, I mean, in my years of living, definitely have experienced my fair share of sadness. And the balance of it is, you know, I've experienced a lot of joy as well. So, I mean, that's one thing that I've learned in life, that you're going to inevitably experience both, you know. But I would say my most impactful early stages of understanding sadness was when I was in my senior year in high school. I was a football player, and, you know, going to the NFL was a childhood dream, you know. I had a cousin who made it to the league, and, you know, I was aspiring to be like him. And so my senior year, I was pretty good. I was running back, and in my senior year, midway through the season, I suffered an injury in the game that stopped me from playing football forever. I had a brain injury where my head had hit the turf. We was playing at this college at the time, this local college, because our home field was getting repaired, and the field that we were playing on, man, it was terrible, man. So when it was an impact, my head hit the turf, I got up, walked to the sideline, and I instantly had went into a seizure. And passed out on the field. They had to flight me to the hospital, man, to perform brain surgery on me. So majority of this stuff I don't remember, is what was told to me. But what I do remember is when I came to, the doctor, one of the first things that the doctor told me, the surgeon who saved my life, the surgeon told me, you know, son, you know, you're a miracle that you survived this, but you'll never play football again. You can't endure any impact like that on your head. And so it was an overwhelming feeling of sadness, because from the age of 6, 7, 8 to 17, that's all I had ever dreamt and seen myself doing was playing football. Some other things, but that was my main thing, at least going to the next level on collegiate side, playing college football. And so for the doctor to tell me I could never play the sport ever again, cold turkey, was like supremely overwhelming. And so I was like, you know, I dealt with a lot of depression, man, for a second during that time frame, because I was just so overwhelmingly sad about not being able to play this game that I love so much. And you know, it evolved into, you know, me finding another career path and finding some other things that I was able to you know, utilize with my skill sets and talents and things that I enjoyed doing. But I mean, for years, I mean, even into my later adult years, man, I've still had, you know, dreams of, man, if I would have been able to keep playing, what it would have been like. What would life be like? Just the experience of playing football, man. I drive past and like around August time, and I'm seeing them kids out 2-a-days, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, I just wish I could do that one more time, you know what I'm saying? So the fact that I felt like life robbed me of something that it was like, it was a death in a way to something but I still had to live through it. You know what I'm saying? I still had to keep on figuring out life past this point of something that was snatched from me. So, yeah, man, it took years to process and deal with that and understand how I can continue to move forward from that. But, man, that was a real deep experience for me.
Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry about that happening to you too. How it changed your life.
Hey, it all worked. One thing about it, I'll say is, and this is why Romans 8:28 is my favorite Bible verse, man. All things work together, man, for the good, man. And so it ended up being a strong testimony that I use, and you know, it's something that worked out for the good and later in life for me. So, you know, happy for a reason.
Oh, for sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, excuse me. For me, I remember being probably like 12 years old, 11 years old. So my father was incarcerated for 15 years. So I remember that first time when I knew he would call every once in a while. But I remember my mom took me to go see him. Went to Mansfield. And I remember being there with him, and the visit was kind of like a blur, because that was like the first time I really like interacted with him at that time. And I remember getting in the car with my mom, and we got back home. I remember just crying. I remember just crying because twofolds. It was one, it was like, why do I have to live and grow up without my dad being present? And I remember like some of my friends had their fathers in their life, and that bond they had with their dad, I always wanted that. And another thing was, I was at home and he was still inside there. So it was so much emotions. And I remember that day, I remember just crying, man. I just had so much bottled up. It was emotional, but it was also anger, because I was like angry towards him at that time. Like, just, why did you make the choices that you made to end up there?
Right.
And that was like the first time really that like I was in tune with my emotions, like in a sad, anger type of way, that made me feel that way. And then even then, I think it just started like building up as I started to get older, because then it was like, oh man, I'm at the basketball games, my dad not there. You know, see other people. Like I remember senior night, I walked senior night with me, my mom, and my grandpa. And I remember people had their parents there. And I remember it always just would just pull me back into that moment of leaving, you know, that prison visit with him and just having so much emotion. So that was the first time for me, like experiencing that in a real way, but then also experiencing it that it just kept, it was like always there with me. Because I kept being reminded at like certain situations, you know? So that was the first time I really, really felt it. And yeah, I remember that day though.
It was so powerful that you couldn't ignore it. You had to deal with it, right?
Yeah, I had to really just let it out. And I remember even like, because Mansfield is like an hour and some change away, so it's not that far. But I remember just being in the car, and I remember just being just silent, just being still, because I had so much. And like during those like prison visits, you don't really get to, it's only so much time. So like I couldn't, why weren't you there? Why did you, like I couldn't deliver all that at that time. Right. Plus I wanted to be more of a joyful time, you know, that we had with each other. So, but that was the first time like I really, really experienced emotions though. Right. In a real way.
That is tough, bro. That's tough. That's tough. Because you get that, it's like, bro, like, could you imagine? Like, talking to somebody, getting to talk to somebody from heaven, and you only get 5 minutes? Bro, like, what? You, it's impossible to get it all out.
Yeah.
All the thoughts, all the feelings. I could talk to you for 2 hours about how I miss you. Mm-hmm. I can talk to you for 2 hours about how I'm mad that you're not here. I can talk to you for 2 hours about how, you know what I'm saying, like what's going on. I can tell you that I could be happy to see you, but to have that, a limit, a restriction on that, bro, I couldn't imagine. That is crazy.
Were you talking to somebody like as a child in that era, like
therapy? Yeah, so I just started therapy in 2020.
Okay.
My uncle was a huge part for me, like having like a father figure, but like also at the same time though, he wasn't my dad though. Right. So like it always was kind of like that lack, but no, I just learned how to just really just cope and just deal with it really at the time. But then like after he came home, I think like the emotions was like a lot. So then, you know, I moved in and started therapy. But no, coming up, I used to just mask it at the time. Plus, I didn't really want my mom to like feel any of it extra, or like, you don't want to really want to worry the people that you really love, that you're going through certain things.
Right.
So I just learned how to just cope with it and just kind of just navigate through it.
And so you use that word cope. Coping is not changing the situation. When people come to therapy, oftentimes they say, can I get some coping skills? And there's some things that all we can do is develop coping skills around. And there's other things we can actually solve.
For sure.
We can solve that. And sometimes as we cope too, we can solve it. We cope as we solve the problem. The other things, it is what it is, and you have to just develop ways to cope with those situations. Right. But I'm sorry that you had to go through that. That was difficult. That had to be difficult because your dad was there, but he was there in a way you had to go. But he was not. Mm-hmm. So that made it more difficult for you.
Yeah,
you had so many questions and stuff.
Man, bro, that is crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna tell you one of my. I call this one of my most profound interactions with emotions. And actually, I was probably in my early 30s when this happened. Had a very very close friend, brother, cousin. We went to college together, and every time I think about this, I get a little sad. He was very smart. He played basketball. Very conscientious brother. We said we was gonna do like things in the community together, and we're gonna build some things. Well, he came across some hard times, being very smart. He got himself into some things, but he was down in the city in North Carolina, and while he was there, apparently there was some conflict. He ended up getting shot in the stomach, and the people that he was with, they wasn't able to get him to the hospital in time. And he died from insanguination, bleeding too much. And when I heard that, my dad called me, because I was in Ohio at the time, and he had lived in Ohio with me for a while, man, I just broke down on my knees. I was crying. I was bawling. I was angry. I was enraged. I remember getting on the phone and calling my cousins, trying to figure out more, I had all kind of feelings.
Right.
And one of the, after feeling that anger that I felt in that moment, one of the biggest mistakes I made was I tried to do this thing where I just kept doing the things that I was doing with work and in the community and just doing those things and not getting in touch with how I was really feeling. And I think about it now, I'm fortunate to be where I am because, I wasn't making the best decisions. Mm-hmm. I wasn't making the best decisions. And a lot of it was because I was masking what I was feeling about this loss, because it felt like to me, for each person it may be different, but it felt like to me that I had lost like a brother, and it just felt so painful. And so here I was trying to just keep going, keep doing the things I was trying to do, but ultimately those feelings kept coming to the surface for me.
Yeah.
And I had to be more aware, and I had to start dealing with them, because what I realized was with my grief was, a lot of times we have bad things happen to us, but we really don't stop and actually feel what we actually feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that, man. I'm sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear that.
So yeah, thank you. I want to say to you guys, man, I feel like for most men, though, some type of grief, we talked about sadness, but some type of grief or loss is probably the first time we really actually deal with those type of emotions, those more complex emotions. Hurt, rejection, loss. It makes us deal with those emotions. And think about it. If we hadn't been dealing with any difficult emotions, if we hadn't been dealing with things like failure and disappointment and hurt, rejection, now we have to we get forced to deal with it when we lose something that's really important to us.
Yeah, I agree, man. Grief is one of those things, and I know I read this book one time related to grief recovery. It's one of those things that's inevitable that every human being, if you have a human experience, you're gonna have to deal with it. But it's also one of the things that we're least prepared for because we don't talk about it and we don't allow our mind to even process it and prepare ourselves for the inevitables in certain aspects. Certain things are unexpected, but death is one of those things that everyone's going to experience some sort of way. I had a friend, who passed in a similar way. I think I told you this before, and he got killed young, and those young deaths are the ones that sometimes hurt the worst, because if it's your grandfather or grandmother. Not saying that those aren't emotional losses, and you're going to definitely deal with it, but the ones that are unexpected ones, the ones you didn't see, like, oh, man, he was only 20-something years old. He still had a lot of life to live. For them to get taken out like that hurt the worst sometimes in my experience. And I had a friend who was murdered prematurely, man, and it was so crazy because I felt like he had so much life in him as well. And for me, what helped me deal with it was, try to turn that into something. So, we as a family and friend group kind of started a foundation in his name and, go and do good work in honor of his life, so to try to, turn that lemon into a lemonade type concept. But, man, that grief thing is something that, most people don't know how to deal with it, and the best way for most people is to just channel it into, a lot of negative stuff. Honestly, people, turn to, whatever type of vices they might have or things of that nature to try to channel it instead of really having healthy conversation or trying to find something productive to channel that with.
Because rage begets rage. Pain enforces more pain. Sorrow pushes more sorrow. And it's just like this perpetual cycle that keeps going round and round and over again. And the only way we really break it is to really try to take time to be aware of what we feel, to take another look at the story. Because hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and so then we can break the cycles that occur in our lives and everything. And so, it's so much hurt out there. And we oftentimes use the word trauma. Yeah, we have trauma, our pains, our sufferings. The brain, the medulla, which is the emotional center of the brain, it remembers the emotion that we experience in any situation. It records it. So you have, like I'm sitting here with you guys today, and intellectually or the frontal lobe, my brain is recording this experience. But any emotion I experience is going to the medulla. So I get in a situation that I see something that feels similar to a past hurt or pain. That part of the brain, the emotional part of the brain, takes over and starts to control my responses to things. That's why when we talk about PTSD, that's one of the critical pieces is understanding that the emotional brain, which is not always logical but valid. So when I mean logical but valid, what I mean is our feelings are valid, but taking time to understand them is the space between how I need to act. There might be a water hose over there, but I've been bit by a snake. My body responds as if it's a snake. But if I look again, I realize, oh, that's a water hose. Oh, this person didn't mean it like that. Oh, they wasn't coming to me this way. But because that protective piece takes over, I see and I respond as if this is that situation that traumatized me or that situation that hurt me. So a lot of times with men, we get traumatized and hurt by things, but because we don't actually take time to deal with the feeling or emotion related to it, we get hit again, and eventually what we do is we blow up. Or we respond with some aggression. We put on smiles, make everybody feel like we good when we're really not, because we're trying to be strong. We're trying to not show any fear. Tell me about a time you felt fear.
Fear?
Man, I done had a life, bro.
Right.
Bro, it's crazy because we earlier we talked about how men talk and the kind of things we talk about. And back in those early days, this was college. I was fighting, boxing at the time. So I was in the gym multiple days a week. And we had started to push because we had a couple of guys in the gym that wanted to try to, go ahead, transition into pro, including myself. And, yeah. So, get one of my boys, what up, bro? How are you? Where the women? That was immediately where it was. So, we found something. So, we took a trip. We kicked it with these women. We were stupid. And then, on the way back, 6-ish in the morning, the sun is coming up, and it's raining hard, bro. And we coming back to Euclid from Macedonia. And in the car next to us, well, we in like a 90-something Ford Escort, them joints, Tyco RC, them joints tiny. It's a chick in an Excursion next to us, and she on the phone giving somebody the business. I'm talking about, yeah, like you can see it. Like, so we like, oh, so like, I'm like, damn, I'm looking over, I'm in the passenger, and I'm just like, man, this is crazy. She over there serving somebody up, and I just see her just boom, 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 and then all of a sudden, I didn't see her, like, she like slammed her brakes almost, like, and we trying to go ahead and get up past her, but then all of a sudden, I see her come back up, and she fly up ahead of us and fishtail.
Oh, wow.
And we like, oh, snaps. And so my boy started to slow down. She kind of getting it under control. And then he speed up to try to go past her. She whips out all the way to the right and then swings full turn and come right at my door. And I'm just looking. And I just see her coming straight at my window, like right at my door. And my boy like, hey, yo. And by the time either of us could respond, complete T-bone slams right between the two doors. The joint, the seatbelt on the floor on them joints was the swing that connected to the door. That joint buckled in, blew off. And I'm in there ping pong. Bing, 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 pinball style. Yeah. Getting dinged around, bro, because there's no seatbelt on me now. And we spinning, slam the median, facing the opposite direction.
Ooh-wee.
And he trying to control the car. Brakes, nothing's working. And we continue with momentum and then go backwards across the highway. And seeing cars flying at us like, ah! Yeah. Bro, I have never in my life been so sure I was dead, bro. Dead. I knew it was over. And we glide across. He swung the wheel. We hit the curb and slammed into the little joints that's when you're first getting on the highway. And my door is pinned. And they had to, my boy was able to just open his door, jump out. I'm toe up, bro.
I bet you
destroyed in that car. And they couldn't get me out because I was pinned in. So they had to come in the part of the seatbelt across my waist that was connected. They had to come in and cut me out. And drag me out through the driver's side. And when I got out, I tore my groin, dislocated my knee, completely dislocated my shoulder, tore my rotator cuff, concussion, everything. When they get me out, none of us realize my leg is chalked. So as soon as my feet touch the ground, I crumble into a puddle because it's raining super hard. And the chick is out there like, I ain't got insurance. Bro, and they trying to put me on an ambulance, and I'm aware enough to say no, but I should have been saying yes. And the person who was helping to get me out was a off-duty EMT. And just got off, saw the accident happen, pulled over and jumped out to help. Wow. Bro, I've never been more scared in my life, fam. I knew I was about to die.
And you probably was numb. You didn't feel anything, did you?
No, not initially. Not initially. But I was behind that. Same thing. Like, hey, bro, you're not fighting anymore. You're not fighting.
Yeah, that was it.
I lost too much mobility in my shoulder. Like, even to this day, I have roughly half the range of motion on the right side that I do on the left side. It was physical therapy. It was I wasn't walking for a minute behind what I did to my leg. They eventually met my daughter's mother. I was on crutches still. So even meeting her, I was still behind those injuries. But bro, that the worst feeling of fear just ever, because it was just like I knew it was over. Gotcha. Between like twice, because seeing her come at the car already, I'm like, oh, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And then when I didn't die to that, it was like the way that we was rotating on the highway, because it was just wet, spun twice. I'm like, bro, like we are so dead. It's just like this is what people be experiencing in them accidents right before they kick the bucket. Yeah. Fortunately, I came out on the other side, but
came on the other side.
Bro,
yeah, you came on the other side. That was. I'm glad you okay.
Like it still hit me now though. Like what you said, like how it record. Like when I'm driving and it rains,
that PTSD kick in.
Fuck with me. I be like, I drive so defensively when it's raining. I'm slow. I'm looking around at every car on the road.
Yeah,
y'all all look all right. Is everybody cool? Like I low key don't even want to be on the highway in the rain. I still do it because I understand like what it is that I'm going through, but it still mess with me to this day.
Okay. Gotcha. What? I'm sorry you had to go through that. You either one of you guys want to speak to fear?
I speak to my most recent fear. It's really clicked when I tore my Achilles. So I tore my Achilles. It'll be 2 years in December. So that was a fear, just because I remember just playing basketball. This was Christmas Eve too. A lot of guys was in town, so we went to go play basketball. And I remember feeling that pop. And I remember falling. I remember like the whole experience was crazy because it felt like somebody just threw a baseball at the back of my ankle. That's what it felt like. So I remember falling. I'm like, man, who just threw something at me? Like, what is y'all doing? And one of my good friends, he was like, no, you just fell. Like, it's probably your ankle. You good. And I remember like trying to get up. And I remember my whole left ankle and foot was just numb. And I remember calling my mom like, I got to go to the ER. Like, I think I just, twisted my ankle or something. I thought it was my ankle at first. Man, did the fast forward time, got the MRI, torn Achilles. So I'll never hoop again, personally, just because of the experience. No, I shoot around all day long. But as far as getting up and down and playing, I'll never do it again. But just that fear of like not knowing what the other side was like. Like, am I ever going to be able to run again was what I was thinking, or when I'm going to be able to run long distance, be able to like work out again. Like, it was just so much was like playing in my head, surgery, all that stuff was a huge fear. So I'll speak on that just recently. That whole experience was just something I'll always remember for sure. But no, it was something that I speak to that most recently that was like a huge fear for me because I didn't know what the other side looked like at the time. Going through that and experiencing that too was crazy. It was a crazy thing.
Yeah, sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah,
tough.
Hey, my boy be out here running them miles now though. So
I was able to get back. Thank God. Yeah, thank God. I was able to play basketball. Yeah, I was able to get back. But at that time, it was a fear of I didn't know what it was, and just having everything taken from me too. Like not being able to walk, not being able to travel, not being able to work out, run. I couldn't even get to I was on crutches. I was bed rest. So like it was just that whole first 12 weeks was dark. It was dark. So like that fear of not knowing what the other side really looked like it was something I'll always remember that for sure. And even now when I watch basketball, like I seen like Aaron Rodgers right when it happened, I'm like, he tore his Achilles. Like now I'm already like, I got PTSD. I already know the signs. Like I'm already watching it, and different stuff like that is a whole another side of like PTSD too. Like I can't even begin to even think about what it would look like if I was like, oh yeah, y'all want to go pick up, like run some pickup. I wouldn't even be able to be normal out there. There'd be no way. No way for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
I'll quickly tell a quick story, man, because you began the whole podcast talking about how women are safer in the wild with bears than they are with men. But I actually had a situation with a bear, and a run-in with a bear. I'm in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We was on a little couples trip, man. We got there like late that night, so we were up in the mountains, so I couldn't really like peep the surroundings like that. But I'm a hiker. I like to get in nature too. So I called my dude. I'm like, hey, bro, first thing in the morning, we're going to go on a little hike, man. You know, check the scenery out. So I'm in the car waiting for him to come outside. And as I'm waiting in the car for him to come outside, I see a bear coming down our driveway.
Man.
And the bear is literally walking, a black bear coming down our driveway. And so, you know, I'm not a stranger to seeing wild animals. I'm thinking like, you know, how it is in Cleveland. You see a deer, it's going to go past you or something like that. So the bear starts coming closer and closer to our car and literally creeps around and comes to the side of my car. Driver's side, comes to the driver's side of my door. Gets up on all hands. Roar! Comes at my window.
What?
Like it's about to like try to bust through the window on me. Then goes and opens my car door. I'm in my wife's Infinity, man. It's a sleek little door handle. I didn't think that this bear was gonna know how to just open the door like a regular human being. Opens the car door on me and tries to come around and claw at me. True story. What? And so, by the grace of God, I was able to grab the door, slam it shut right quick, and lock the door, man. By this time, everybody in the house was up because I'm yelling to my dude. I'm on the phone with him. I'm like, hey, bro, don't come outside. It's a bear out here.
he might probably be like, yeah, all right.
But so by this time, they all come to the window just to see if it was true. They see the bear at the car door, opening the car door, trying to come at me. So that hands down was the wildest experience I've ever, encountered with an animal, man. I done been attacked by a dog before. I done had raccoons come at me, man. But that bear experience, man, it was wild, man. So I don't fool with Gatlinburg, Tennessee anymore because of that.
I hope you had your brown pants on, brother. I would have shot a deuce on myself, bro. Like, what is happening?
It was wild, bro. It was wild, man. And then the bear just, after I closed the door, I think it was a female bear because soon after you seen a couple of other little cubs following behind her. But she was looking for food, man. And she smelled it in that car. She smelled something in that car, man. She was trying to get at it.
Dark meat.
But that was
trying to come at you.
She was trying to get at it.
Like my Daniel and the Lion Den experience.
Yeah, exactly. You survived it.
I survived.
Yeah. Hey.
The door open?
The door open.
Bro.
But I've heard stories about bears being able to go inside doors, go inside people's houses, go in their refrigerators and get out exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And walk out the house.
Facts.
I don't know what I would.
Yeah.
We started looking at all types of YouTube videos, seeing bears do wild stuff like that after that, man. It was like, wow.
It had me a little heart attack real quick.
So, it had a little heart attack.
Yeah, I would have got 8.
So I gotta, that's so funny. I got a question for you guys. So obviously we've talked about sadness. We've talked about grief. We've talked about fear and those feelings. And those are sort of few of the feelings. And I challenge men to get you a feelings chart, or they're all over the line, all over. You can find them online, and on a day-to-day basis, identify the different feelings that you have. So you can become more emotionally aware of feelings, because the more you are aware of them, the more you can claim them, identify them, you can control them. We're going to talk some more about that later, but really work on that, because that's foundation. That's the critical to changing the way we deal with things emotionally.
Yeah.
Now, for many men, I saw this on TikTok and I thought it was kind of funny. And obviously, I want to throw it in here. But for many men, do you think they would rather talk to a tree or to a woman about their intimate feelings?
Why a tree though?
Why, yeah, out of all things.
I
I would say most men will probably rather just talk to a tree.
Why you say that?
Because there's no reaction to it. And they want to create this facade about themselves when they're around women. So even if they did kind of express their feelings or emotions to women, it probably wouldn't be 100% accurate or true. They'll like hide some things. But if you're just talking to a tree, you would probably just express everything because they don't have any emotion to what you're saying. And then you can just leave it there and you don't have to worry about what you're saying getting around or other people knowing how you're feeling too. So I would say most men would do a tree. That's what I would think.
That's crazy.
Are we going statistically? You saying like
No,
what most men or what?
But just say what you think.
I just feel like it depends on the type of woman, man, you dealing with, man. If it's fertile ground, if she's the type of intellectual or thought-provoking person who you can have a healthy conversation with, then. But yeah, if you dealing with some toxicity, man, yeah, I'm going to the tree. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not about to deal with nothing that I know is gonna get me pushed back.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, that's rough. It definitely depends on the kind of woman, because you could be getting the exact level of non-valuable response from a tree or a woman, depending on who she is. But there are definitely some women in my life who I know I can have legit any kind of conversation about. It's just I know who to talk to about what. You know what I mean? So I would say woman if I had my choice in the matter. You know what I mean? Of which one to be talking to.
Yeah. You know, I think you have to take as a man, you have to take responsibility for the fact that you are communicating to someone and you want them to hear you. So you have to know your audience. Know the person you're talking to.
Always.
And I think when we are more aware of our feelings, we can identify feelings. We can tell people what we need or want or like to see happen without attacking them. But if I'm keeping it real and I'm just telling you, oh, MF and this or whatever, you like this and and all that, you probably not going to be heard anyway. So you probably better off just going to a tree.
Right.
So maybe the woman has issues. Maybe she won't receive you because women have been influenced by the patriarchal society we live in, and oftentimes they don't see men as being quality if they are vulnerable and if they do express themselves, because they have issues with that themselves because they've been conditioned to think that way. Yeah. They see men as being weak when they do that. But however, there's those women who can hear and can receive. And if you deliver your message, your feelings, the emotions the right way, then they can hear you. So I want to challenge all men to be aware of your feelings, be aware of your emotions first, and then get more insight into why you feel that way, which we're going to talk some more about that later. In our next episode, we're going to explore some different things that help develop our ideas about masculinity and why we might be less likely to express our feelings. Think about gangsters. Think about cowboys. Think about our heroes. Think about our music. Think about our family. Think about our school. Think about our churches. All these different places that influences the way we think about being a man. So, with that being said, you guys got anything else y'all want to add?
Y'all better not be out here crying.
Control your emotions.
Control it.
Do not let them control you, good brother.
Bruh, let's talk some feelings. In the next episode, I'll talk to you soon. Don't forget to like us and subscribe and leave your comments in the comment section because we want to hear them. Because if you don't, we'll feel some kind of way. Bye.
Peace.